So lastly, I want to talk a bit about performance. And performance is something that's kind of difficult to average out for everybody. Performance is highly dependent on the type of footage you are handling. Performance also depends on your machine's GPU capabilities. So it's really hard to guarantee to someone that they're going to get real-time playback with their machine. Performance also depends on how heavy your node graph is. So if your node graph uses any amount of noise reduction, adding DigiDiff on top of that will most likely cause playback issues, especially at high resolutions. Additionally, if you're using a bunch of other effects within your grade, such as keys, magic masks, third-party grain plugins, anything like that, adding DigiDiff to the mix only increases your GPU load and will most likely affect your playback performance. So you can think of performance as a scale, and if this scale tips at anything over 45 pounds, your node graph might be adding, let's say, 44 pounds, and adding DigiDiff might be those 5 extra pounds that send you over. And you might think DigiDiff is the thing that's causing a bottleneck in your system, when really you're just using up most of your performance bandwidth with the rest of the plugins and effects and things you're doing in your node graph, and DigiDiff is just that one straw that's sending it over the edge. That being said, there's 2 ways to increase your performance if you're experiencing some issues. One of which is to use the timeline playback resolution. So if you're having issues, the first thing you can do is set it to half or quarter, and that will keep the overall look of your diffusion. Nothing will change other than the resolution it's being played at, and this can give you better playback immediately. Another thing you can do is change the timeline resolution for your project. So if you're delivering in 4K, but you don't really care to view it in 4K as you color grade, you can set your timeline resolution to 1080p while you're color grading, and then right before you export out the final file, you can just boost this back up to your delivery resolution, whether that's 4K UHD or 4K DCI, whatever you choose. Last but not least, if all else fails, what you can do is use your render cache. You can go to the playback menu, go to render cache, and select Smart. What that'll do is, if you jump back over to your timeline view, if you select Smart, you'll see a red line, and Resolve will, whenever you're idle or in the background, start to render out these clips and save them as cache files. So instead of having to compute all of the visuals in real time, it just saves them and plays them back as their own video file. And as you make adjustments, it'll delete the cache and re-render a new one to show those new changes. So this method can be really useful for really demanding projects at high resolutions. And sometimes the other solutions that I mentioned earlier are, do the trick. So that's basically it. That's the bulk of the nuts and bolts of DigiDiff. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment or shoot us an email at support@chromatica.co.